Edale to most is a starting line, but today we're walking backwards through time. I'm heading up Grindsbrook Clough again, but today we're not just crossing miles, we're crossing eras. When we analyse pollen grains from the peat layers, we find that 10,000 years ago, as the glaciers retreated, this valley was the Wildwood, oak, hazel, lime and birch trees. We find tantalising hints, such as flint shards, from when the hunter-gatherers set up a shelter. It tells us that the hunters followed the deer through these cloughs. To them the plateau wasn't a park, it was a sacred, untamed frontier. There was no ownership, only survival. The people that lived here at that time were nomadic hunter-gatherers. They would follow the herds of deer through here, going up onto the plateau. And we know that again because we found in the layers of peat, in fact at the lower end of the peat, we found flint shards from when they've been maintaining and making tools. And in various places they'll have stopped to do that, and they'll have camped for the night, so they'll have made a temporary or a not so temporary shelter and stayed there for a few days and repeated it a number of times. Whenever they went up there and they're close to that spot, they'd know that was the favourite ground and they'd go and stop there. Of course, the time of the hunter-gatherer wouldn't last. The environment was changing and we were giving it a push. The little clearings we'd made became bigger clearings, and gradually we grew crops and kept animals. And getting rid of the trees was a huge problem because they were the pumps that removed the water, and that water soured the land. Trees would no longer grow, and when the moss died off and a new layer formed, it couldn't rot. So at 1 centimetre a century, it gradually piled up and the peat was formed. If you look at the archaeological reports for this area, there are various ones you can get to online. They say that down Grindsbrook Clough there was a forge at some point. Now, because they don't want loads of people going to the forge to have a look, its location isn't pinpointed, but they do sequence all the different locations for various finds that have been made and for quarries in the area. And where this unidentified forge is in this record would seem to me to tie in somewhere just down here. Now, this little clough here, you can see evidence that there's been some kind of building here, and I think it would have been perfect to dam off to get a body of water to be able to help with the tooling from the forge that was here. Who knows? And it's not given a date. We know it was iron because we found iron ore, but that could be any time going back a long, long time. Certainly before the next stage, which was the enclosures. Last year I thought I was a bit of a pioneer because I'd researched and a couple of people had hinted to me that there was a path up to Kinder, which is just here, just after these trees. It goes up quite steep and it ends at the top near the 7-minute crossing. But actually it's quite an old path, and all this hillside behind me here has braided pathways running down it, where they loaded peat onto sleds and brought the sleds down. They did that before they had the right to do it because nobody owned the land, but a bit later on it was the right of Turbary, which was to bring turf. I think the date, as everyone knows from our history, is 1066 and the Norman Conquest. And after the Norman Conquest, the land was carved up and the lords of the manor had to give permission to use the land. So they had to give permission to gather wood, to gather peat, Turbary, and to gather even to hunt on the land. Certainly you couldn't go up there. And after the Enclosures Act, or the various Enclosures Act, the lords of the manor, the lords would start building walls to enclose the area. That's one of the requirements of the Enclosures Act. It had to be enclosed, hence its name. But those walls gave a very strong message: keep out, you can't come here.
I wanna grow like a tree, change like its leaves. I wanna be like its roots, never need it, see that it fruits. I wanna flow like a stream, reflect like it's clean. I wanna be like its shore, never looking or asking for more. No. Broken empire, hide your cracks. Stolen land, the spoils in our hands. Wingless angel, walk the street.
Of course, sometimes the enclosures aren't stone. That fence is part of a fence that goes all the way around the top of Kinder to preserve some of it. And at one point, grazing animals were not supposed to go past it. You do still see some that have managed to get through, and the fence is broken in a couple of places. But by and large, they've tried to preserve Kinder. In 1932, quite a lot of common men who spent all their life working hard, 5 days a week, very long hours, very low pay probably, said they'd had enough and they wanted access to the countryside, and they organised a mass trespass up on Kinder Scout. When they widely publicised what they were doing, and the game wardens and some police were ready to meet them. And some scuffles broke out, and one of the game wardens was injured. I've no doubt that quite a few of the walkers were also injured. But subsequently they were arrested, and some of them ended up in prison. It was a big national story at the time, and there was a massive sense of outrage. And quite a few years later, the first national park was formed in the Peat district on Kinder Scout. And of course the National Trust have realised how important the area is, particularly actually the peat reserves and how much carbon they lock in. And they have, through initiatives like the Moors for the Future, a massive amount of conservation work. All of these paths that you see are done to cut down erosion and to try to preserve the land more. Really, really important piece of work. But it's come full circle, hasn't it? Because the National Trust is owned by us. It's a public body. So ownership's come back to everybody. But do we really own it? Can you own land? I do know that the things I've been watching as I've been coming up, the stones and the shapes and the carvings in them, they go long before mankind. Anyway, we're just about to come up to the particularly tough bit. I'm going to grab some water from the Fountain of Youth, and I'll film that and I'll show you the route we're going up. think it's fair to say that most Hoops Bivvy users will be familiar with the zip game. On this 0-inch spool there are 3 fasteners for the actual thing itself. I think there's 2 fasteners down the side, and then there's the mesh which has 2 fasteners each side as well. So you've got a lot of fasteners. Right. Dry sack. Cook stuff. It's chilly. -3.5. It's -4.5 now. That half's important. Got myself a coffee. Got these Taylor's coffee bags at the outside show last year. I'll not be getting any more, but I'm using them up. I'm experimenting with not using those little sachets. I've got a nice Arabica bean instant coffee, which I'm going to, I've decanted into a little container. I'm going to give that a go. I mean, the Kenko coffee pouches are great. They're alright. I just don't like all the packaging. It's we should be trying to cut down on that. So when I was getting my water bladder out, just out the corner of my eye, noticed something flick, and I had a little good look round and couldn't see it. And then just at the edge of the tarp, just about to go out of the tarp, sure it had legs and it was running around, was my water filter. I keep it in its bag. Now that, potentially could have snowed overnight. The wind could have caught it. I really doubt it. An animal could have taken it. Well, that's a pretty important piece of kit. Now, it doesn't matter because I've got water that I'm enough water for tonight, but it's an expensive piece of kit to replace, is that water filter. So you have to be really careful and keep your eye on everything. This might be quite an odd view for you, but I thought I'd give you a view of what it's like actually inside the bivvy. So this is the amount of space I have. That's the top. There are 3 zips on here. There's a middle zip, so I can undo it and it'll just peek out. There's a final zip at the end that I can just whiz back to open it. Probably going to be shutting down now. It's good grief, 7:15. Just tried a live stream, but not got a very good signal, and it's quite blustery, so I didn't pursue it. I've tried a time lapse. As expected, the moon is incredibly overpowering. I might just alter the settings and give it another go. The Nightcore power bank is on 75%. No, sorry, the Nightcore, the Flex Tail. It's supposed to be good down to low temperatures, 10,000 milliamp hour. So it's charged this camera from 20% up to 90%, and I'm just charging my phone with it now. I've got spare battery for the camera, and I've got another camera as well. Anyway, I'm going to sign off for the night. Probably won't do any filming during the night unless I can get the time lapse working properly. I'm I'm going to try and get enough of a signal to see what the actual timings are on the moon, so I don't think it's going to be up all night. I'm getting signals coming in. Okay, so see you in the morning. Good night. That's been a cold one. -6 right through the night. I was warm. I've got 2 hats on and my thermals and everything. It's just after 7. I think we've got 8. Let's have a look. Dawn is 7:40, sunrise is 8:22. So, gonna make myself a cup of breakfast and then pack up steadily. Probably be ready just by the time it's morning.